Hi there, John McAdams here, and you are listening to episode 371 of the Big Game Hunting Podcast. Today, Colby Adamek and Mark Walker are joining me on the show to talk about Sierra bullets. Colby is the marketing manager for Sierra, and Mark is the head of R&D for the company. So they both know a whole lot about the company and their products. Today, we're going to talk about the history of Sierra, the details of the various bullets they offer, both for target shooting and for hunting, and some of their new products for 2025, to include a new line they are rolling out in partnership with Barnes. Now, Sierra is an old, highly regarded company in this space that is best known for producing accurate bullets. Heck, both my grandfather and father used Sierra bullets both for shooting at the range and for hunting. So some of their designs have been around for decades. However, they also have some literally brand new cutting edge products that just hit the market. So there is something for everyone in this interview, regardless of whether you are interested in just tried and true products that have been around for a long time or the newest, latest, greatest stuff. And as a teaser, a few listeners will have the opportunity to test out some of these new products from Sierra this year. I will share more details about that at the end of the show. Now, before we get started, I do give my paying Patreon supporters the opportunity to submit questions that I might potentially ask future guests in a podcast interview for them to answer on the air. As a matter of fact, I actually incorporated a couple of questions supported by Patreon supporters into this interview because they were just so darn good. So join my Patreon community at patreon.com/biggamehunter or at the link in the episode description to take advantage of this perk. Okay, let's get started talking to Colby and Mark about Sierra bullets. Well, good afternoon, Mark and Colby. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. Very excited to talk to you guys about offerings from Sierra.
Morning, John. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Good morning.
Well, as we get started, can you, one of you, very briefly give us an overview of the history of Sierra, what you guys are best known for, what sets you apart from other companies in this space?
Yeah, I can take a stab at it. I'm a month and a half into the gig here, so if I go wrong anywhere, Mark, you can hop in and correct me. But
yeah, you got it.
Yeah, Sierra's been around since 1947. I believe they started just after World War II and came onto the market with the shortage of bullets at the time. Went through a couple acquisitions. In 1968, they sold to the Leisure Group. At the time, that was a publicly held company. Went through several different transitions with that ownership, including eventually transitioning from being public to private ownership, to an LLC and all that different stuff. And then in 1990, they made the move. I should say they were started in California and established in California. In 1990, they made the move to Sedalia, Missouri. That's where they still are today. And then in 2017, they sold to Claris. Claris owned them till 2024, at which point they sold to JDH Capital, who is the current owner. And we've been very excited with their ownership. They seem very progressive and willing to work with us. Being an ammo or a bullet manufacturer company, the space seems to be, a little bit getting with the times, if you will. And Sierra's old ownership, I feel like, was hesitant to make some of those changes, whereas JDH has been very supportive of that. So we've got a lot of exciting things that are coming down the pipe, including the MatchKing X bullet that we just came out with. So.
Well, good. I'm excited to talk to you more about that in particular. And, like you said, Sierra is an old company, but you guys not only have been around for a long time, but you have a reputation for certain things, and especially in that target/match line with your MatchKing bullets. And I know almost anybody that's ever reloaded for precision over the last, say, 50 years, they probably use some Sierra bullets of one kind or another, one bullet diameter or one weight. But that's not all you guys make. But we'll talk you make stuff for defense, you make stuff for hunting, you make stuff for precision shooting. And so we'll talk a little bit about all of that stuff. So you say you're based in Missouri now. That's where you produce all your bullets, right?
That's correct. Yep, I'm actually based in Bozeman, Montana. I work remotely for Sierra as a marketing manager, but yeah, Mark and team, they're all based in Missouri there.
Okay. Now, I first became known or aware of Sierra bullets as component bullets for reloaders. And I know we can talk about this later. You make some stuff that you sell specifically directly to different big ammunition manufacturers. Is most of your stuff designed, marketed, and sold to directly to consumers for hand loading?
Being that we're a component-based business, right? We work with a lot of partners in the space, including a lot of finished ammunition manufacturers. So to be transparent, that's where the bulk of our business goes. It's just where a lot of the volume is. But that being said, we make the bullet for the end user, right? So we're not designing those bullets in mind for the brands that we work with. We're making them for the end user. Our partners like those designs and use cases. They get on board with our design philosophies, and that's why they buy and use our bullets. But yeah, we do sell through our website, and all of our bullets that we make are directly available through the website. That said, a lot of our partnership is the biggest portion of our business.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's dive into some of your individual product lines that you make for hunters and shooters. Let's start with your bread and butter, the thing you guys are probably best known for, with the Sierra MatchKing bullet. Tell us a little bit about that bullet, some of the different offerings you have in it, what it's best suited for, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I can go on this one. Mark's our, we should introduce him. He's our head of research and design, so he's got a lot of the analytics and the nitty gritty on this stuff. So I don't know, Mark, do you want to take a stab at that one?
You're doing just fine. If I hear something, I'll let you know.
Yeah, so the MatchKing bullet, as you mentioned, that's like our bread and butter. That's really where we've established our name and our reputation for quality and accuracy through Sierra. Mm-hmm. As we were briefly mentioning at the beginning of the show, that's a bullet that we've sold for a long time. Mark, do you know when we first started selling the MatchKing?
I think the MatchKing name came up in the 60s. We started with the international 3168 International, which was actually an FMJ. And then after that morphed into the quote-unquote MatchKing line. So say in the 60s.
Yeah. All right. So it's been a bullet that's been around for a long time. It's been tried and true. Because of that, you get a lot of these guys that are running that inherently high BC, very accurate bullet. They can take it and use it at the range, use it for comps, use it for matches, use it for all that stuff. And then in today's world, where you have the prevalence of NRL Hunter and all that stuff, where you want the match accuracy for that competition style shooting. But boy, wouldn't it be great if you could have that in a hunting bullet and take it into the field and not be changing out bullets, changing up your loads, doing all that stuff. That's where the MKX comes into play. MatchKing X, the bullet that we just introduced. It's a bullet that has been, demanded by our consumers for a long time. They reached out wanting to know if they could take the original MatchKing hunting, and to be totally transparent, when we designed that bullet, that's not what it was designed for. It was designed to be a high BC, very accurate bullet. Expansion wasn't on the design docket for that bullet, so we always told them no. I think a lot of people took it out and used it that way, but inherently that bullet wasn't designed for expansion. It had a harder lead core, the mouth opening was more tapered, so it didn't allow for that initial expansion, whereas the MKX does. It's got a softer lead core, slightly wider opening at the mouth, skives along the nose, so it really helps that bullet expand. And then one of the things that bullet does really well too, being that it has higher BCs, and again, today's shooter is so capable, right? Like the average shooter 5 years ago, 500 or 400 yards was a far shot. Just with equipment progressing the way it is now, it feels like any Joe Schmo can go buy a rifle over the counter and all of a sudden they're a 600-yard shooter, right? So it was really important to us that when we designed that bullet, we want it to expand, but we also want it to be capable of expanding out to longer range shots that are inherent with, the requirements of being able to shoot far like that. So that's where that bullet thrives. I believe it's got an expansion speed of 1,800 feet a second. Is that correct, Mark?
1,800, 1,850, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, a friend of mine got a new rifle, 308, we were at the range together, getting it zeroed and everything, and he bought a couple random boxes of ammo at the store to see what it would like, and one of them was a box of Federal Gold Medal ammo, 168 grain MatchKing. Shot fantastic in that bullet. He was like, "Yeah, I think this is what I'm going to hunt with. That's it's got a hollow point. It's good to go." And I said, "I don't know, man. This is a target bullet. I don't think this is best suited for hunting, even though it shoots great." And so we got him something else, shot great, and he ended up hunting with that, and it worked fine for him. I took the rest of his ammo home. I shot it into ballistic gel out of my 308, and that bullet penetrated for 7 or 8 inches, didn't do anything. Then it tumbled, broke in two, and continued to penetrate. And I was like, that is what I was afraid it was going to do. So even though it is a hollow point design, it's very small. You said it's got kind of a hard lead core to it. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah, so that's in the design process. You can control, whether if it's quote unquote hard lead or soft lead. It's going to, again, facilitate different uses of that bullet. But yeah, the MatchKing, if you think about it from a production standpoint, right, we want to make that bullet do what it needs to do. It needs to perform. It needs to be accurate. It needs to be consistent. But if you get into the cost of engineering and expansion feature to that bullet, it just becomes more costly, right? So why would we do that if that's not the designed end use of that bullet? So that's really why when you go through these different bullet manufacturing process, one expands, one doesn't. One has a higher BC need. With higher BC needs becomes more higher tolerances in testing and more, waste that goes through the engineering process. So there's all these different check marks as you design bullets that, is it designed for long range? Is it designed for optimal accuracy? Yes. Okay. That needs to hit these marks. Is it designed to expand? No, it's not really important. Okay. We don't need to add that cost into the manufacturing of this bullet. Right. So, that's where you've kind of arrived at the different bullet types that we have today.
Yeah. So that's one of those bullets you could certainly, the traditional MatchKing, you could certainly kill something with it, but you could have erratic results because, like you said, it is designed for accuracy and precision, and everything else is secondary.
Yeah, and I think that stems from like the old school mind thought, right? Of like, I just want that bullet to hit where I'm aiming, and if it hits there, whether it pencils through or not, it's going to kill the animal. And sure, maybe to some extent that's true, but you want to get that expansion. You want that bullet to hit where it's supposed to hit, and then also expand it to, hopefully you're not blood trailing that animal for the next quarter mile because you put it through its lungs, but it's got a 1/4 inch pencil bullet hole through it, as opposed to getting in the lungs and blowing up and it's dead within 5 feet of where you shot it, type of thing. So
now the MatchKing X, you said is designed to be also have a great BC, also be very accurate, very consistent, but still it is actually designed specifically to expand, and you said down to about 1,800, 1,850 feet per second. And so you said that the jacket is a little bit different. You got a skive tip to it, a little bit different lead core, right? Did I understand all of that correct?
Yeah. So ballistically, that bullet is, the same thing as a MatchKing. What's really cool, what Mark and the team did, is in our initial offering, they're actually offering the bullet weights in comparable or the same bullet weights as are currently offered in the MatchKing. So guys that want to make the switch over to MatchKing or to MatchKing X, it's the same load. You don't have to change anything in your load. Ballistically, it's going to be doing the same thing. So from an exterior standpoint, it's the same bullet. What's different is, again, on the inside, using a softer lead core. And then on that jacket, it's tapered toward the nose as far as the thickness goes. So again, just to help allow that expansion to begin once it hits the animal. And then there's some light skiving that goes on the nose again, just to really allow that bullet to open up.
Okay. All right. Very, very good. So I see right now on your website, you list a 175 30 cal, 200 grain 30 cal, 142 grain 6.5 millimeter, 135 grain 270 caliber. Is that everything for this instant?
Yeah, so that's for the initial offering. We've got stuff that's in the works that we're going to have out before the end of this year that will really expand on that line as well. So, consistent with what you would think, with trying to get with modern caliber offerings, we're going to be looking at doing stuff in that 6 millimeter, 7 millimeter type offering. So there'll be more to come.
Yeah, so looking here at the just for instance, the 142 grain 6.5 millimeter advertised G1BC .595. So that's not quite. It's high. There are some that are higher, but there's also a lot that are much lower than that as well. So you're kind of at the upper end of what a lot of people actually. So it says actually at two different spots. It says 140 grain and 142 grain. Oh, is it? Which is it actually?
It's 142 grain. We got an inconsistency. You need to clean it up.
But fair enough.
Got busted.
Yeah. So, but this is in line with what you're going to have with a lot of other hunting bullets in these bullet weights and whatnot. But idea being that you're going to get that nice Sierra accuracy out of this hunting bullet, and that's wonderful that you're going to be able to do a 1-for-1 switch with it in your loads with a tradition with your match bullets. Now, let's just briefly touch on the tipped MatchKing before we move on to some of your other bullets. Is there any significant difference between that and the traditional MatchKing other than the fact that the tipped MatchKing has a polymer tip?
No, you nailed it there. It's just got the polymer tip on the front. You're going to get inherently higher BCs with those bullets, being it's a tipped bullet. Besides that, though, it's going to have the same makeup as our traditional MatchKing bullet.
Mm-hmm. And this is another one of these bullets that I'm sure people, actually I know people definitely hunt with the tipped MatchKing more so than they do with the traditional MatchKing. And there's some people that swear by those bullets. And like you said, if I understood correctly, they're designed for precision. And they may work on game, and if they do, that is a byproduct, an unintentional byproduct of things. Did I understand that right?
That's correct, yeah. So again, when you get down to, how that bullet is engineered, it's going to have a little bit of a denser, harder lead core, if you will, especially when you compare that to like our GameKing, our tipped GameKing, which is another tipped bullet in that offering that we would push you towards if you wanted to, have a higher BC tipped bullet for hunting. That's the one we'd push you towards. That being said, can't really influence what guys are using these bullets for, and we know that a lot of guys are using that tipped MatchKing for hunting and having success with it. So,
now with all of these bullets, and we'll talk more about this later, say with your GameKing stuff, none of these bullets are quote-unquote bonded in the sense that a lot of people would think. And the way that you would control your expansion with them is just by the jacket thickness. Is that right?
Yeah.
Jacket thickness, that core hardness, skiving, that meat plat diameter. That's really the levers you pull for those.
Okay. And I am assuming that one of the reasons that you are not bonding these bullets is because that makes it more difficult to make them extremely precise and accurate shooting.
Yeah, accuracy is definitely, we've tried bonding in the past. Accuracy is definitely something we're known for, and we're not willing to put out a product that wasn't going to shoot. Mm-hmm. So it's not that it's off the table anymore, but we're still, at the time it just wasn't accurate for us.
Yeah. Now, I have never hunted anything with a target bullet of any sort myself. I've shot them into gel. I've known people that have done it, that sort of thing. And like I said, with that experience that I had with the traditional MatchKing bullet, my expansion there was almost no expansion until it started tumbling. Is that probably the most common problem that people would have with these bullets if they were hunting with one of your just match bullets?
Yeah, I would say so, right? Again, I think people are using that bullet just with the inherent expectation of like, well, this is a high BC bullet. It's going to hit where I'm intending it to, and that being the most important thing. Whether it's a good or bad thing, I think that the performance of a bullet is more generally secondhand for a shooter, right? Like, especially in today's day and age, like we talked about, where every guy can buy a 600-yard gun, if you will, over the counter. Well, they want to go shop around the highest BC bullet they can put in there, and like, all right, it's going to hit where I'm aiming. That's all I need. When in reality, there's so many different things. Yeah, maybe that goes right for you, but more often than not, you need to plan for also like what could go wrong, right? And if you miss your mark a little bit, having expansion in a bullet isn't going to save you more times than not than if you happen to put it right where it's supposed to go every time. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that, again, guys like to shoot that bullet for matches. It's a very accurate bullet, high BC. Maybe they just don't want to change back and forth. They put so many rounds through their rifle, whatever, for their match stuff, and they're like, well, they're so confident what that bullet does. They're so used to it. I think you just see a lot of that crossover just from that type of use. Like you shoot 1,000 rounds at matches every year, you become very familiar with that bullet and what it's going to do. So you have a high confidence in it hitting where it's supposed to hit, and you're like, oh, I feel good enough to take it hunting. And so that's where hopefully that MKX is going to fill that void for these guys now. I mean, it's really going to become the bullet that they can take to matches. It's going to have the BC that they're used to with those MatchKing bullets. They can go shoot matches one weekend and have an opener or a hunting season the next weekend, and they're not changing anything. They're able to go shoot at animals with that bullet now too. So they're going to be able to build that rapport all season long, shooting matches and doing all that stuff, and then take it straight to the field with no switch out. So it should be sweet.
Okay, very, very good. So that's a good way of doing things when people are using your products in a way that you don't necessarily recommend them doing, and you don't want to make a change to that specific product. You can make another one that gives them all the good things about the old one that also performs more consistently in that other way. Now, the other way that you've gone about doing that in the past is with your GameKing bullet. So what is the difference between the GameKing and the MatchKing?
Mark, you want to take that one away? You're a little bit more on the weeds on that one than I am.
We'll give it a shot. Normal GameKing bullets are they're a lead tipped Spitzer boat tail, mostly Spitzer boat tails, but basically they do have an exposed lead tip, whereas all of our MatchKings are a hollow point boat tail design. Basically, that exposed lead tip, a little larger opening to initiate expansion. They also have thicker jackets. So they hold together a little bit better, than say some of our thinner jacketed varmint type stuff. But that's basically the GameKing is like a little thicker jacket, exposed lead tip, but accuracy is still very good. Not quite MatchKing spec, but very, very close.
Now, how long has the GameKing been around?
GameKing is going to be around. That's one of the OGs. That's like I'm going to say 70s, 80s. Yeah,
I think my grandfather hunted with that bullet. Yeah,
they've been around a very, very long time. Back in California, they came from back there. So
now, compared to the MatchKing, so you said thicker jacket, exposed lead tip at the front to help better get some expansion going, but that thicker jacket to keep from excessive expansion. Is it going to have a lower ballistic coefficient than a similar caliber weight MatchKing?
I mean, normally, yeah. We usually, those bullets are normally designed around, say, a cartridge, 270 or a 30-06 or something like that. So the ogives sometimes on those bullets are somewhat, I'm going to say, blunter. Not that they're necessarily blunt, but yeah, those are more designed around a specific cartridge for function. So yeah, you're an equivalent, MatchKing bullet of that weight is probably going to have a higher type BC than those GameKing bullets.
And so just looking at what you have on your website, I mean, it is just a plethora of different options you got in the GameKing. You got stuff all the way up to, there's a 300 grain 375 caliber GameKing, and then looks like all the way down to, is there a 22 caliber? Yeah. I see one.
Yep.
And then everything in the middle. So you got 6mm, 25 caliber, 270, 7mm, 30 cal, 338. Is there an 8mm or anything in there that I might have missed?
8mm, 375.
Okay, yeah, so almost, and then of course in all of the traditional bullet weights, so like a 150, 165, 180, 30 cal, for instance, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah, they cover pretty much the whole gamut.
So very, very old bullet, got a good reputation in the field for both accuracy and for hunting. But like you said, though, none of your bullets are bonded, and you control the expansion with the thickness of the jacket, the type of lead that you have in it, and you said, what was it, the last part?
Skiving, knee plat diameter, those kind of things. Yeah, that's really how we
just the nose design in general, I'd say. Yep.
What is your optimum velocity window for these bullets for expansion?
Some of those really depends on some of it depends upon the caliber. But for the most part, I'm going to say anywhere from say 2,500, 2,800, down to that 1,800, 1,850 feet per second. But some of that also varies on the caliber. Like 22 caliber, those are inevitably going to be pushed a lot faster. So there you're probably looking at 3,000 feet a second. But yeah, that's kind of the velocity window that those bullets were designed around.
Now, would you personally have any reservations using, say, a 180 grain 30 caliber GameKing bullet on an elk? Is that a tough enough bullet for you to work with it? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I would have no problem with it. I mean, you keep your ranges reasonable, and shoot it in an .6 300 Win Mag. Yeah, I would have no reservations about a 180 GameKing. Absolutely.
Yeah. But if a guy were to take, say, a 150 or a 165 GameKing, put it in a 300 Win Mag, shoot something very close, he could have suboptimal penetration with it then.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So, like I say, basically those bullets, a lot of times just make sure you're matching your cartridge and your bullet to the game you're after.
Yeah.
Just don't get too extreme on either end.
Okay. Now, and actually I missed it earlier, but I also see that you have a 35 caliber GameKing as well. So for a guy with a 35 Wayland or something like that. So darn near anything that people in this country are hunting with, you have a GameKing for them.
You betcha.
Now, you also have a tipped GameKing too. So is that the same bullet with a polymer tip on it?
Do you want to grab that, Colby?
Yeah, go for it. You're doing great.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
Tipped GameKings were actually, that was kind of a redesign of everything in general, basically.
Okay. All right.
So our GameKing bullets, we had a lot of people say, well, the overexpansion or losing cores, things like that. Penetration, they wanted something a little bit penetrating deeper. And we also had a lot of requests for a tipped hunting bullet. So the tipped GameKing really was a redesign of the GameKing line, along those lines. Those bullets in particular, a very thick jacket at the base, tapers out towards the mouth. We use typically harder type lead, higher antimony lead with those bullets so that they hold together better. And you also have that acetyl resin tip, plastic tip, gets the BC up higher, but it also initiates expansion. When it hits game, that plastic tip usually gets knocked out of the way, and then it allows it to open up. So yeah, the tip GameKing is a whole other animal.
Okay. All right. Very good. Now, is there any truth to the thing that people say sometimes that a polymer tip will help initiate expansion on a bullet?
Basically what happens is that plastic tip, when it hits the animal, the tip gets knocked out of the way. So basically you're left with that big hole in the jacket. It just basically behaves like a large hollow point.
Okay.
At that point. So yeah, I'm not going to say that the tip initiates it, but when it hits it, that tip just gets knocked out of the way and really and it behaves more like a big hollow point.
Yeah. So if you had, say, for instance, a 7mm tipped GameKing without a polymer tip on it, so it's got a giant hollow point in it, would that adversely affect its aerodynamics as it went down range then?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that tip definitely helps with the BC. But then it also gives you the advantage of that big hollow point. So you kind of get the best of both worlds when you have the tip in there.
Now, the first time I ever became aware of the tipped GameKing, and this actually may have been when you introduced it, or maybe a little bit after, was the 175 grain tipped GameKing in the 6.8 Western.
Yes.
Did they kind of come out together, or did the tipped GameKing come out, then the 6.8 Western was a little bit after that?
The 6.8 Western was probably after. We worked with Winchester on that. They approached us and were looking for a tipped bullet to go in that cartridge. So yeah, we did work along with those guys on that bullet design, and I think it turned out pretty well. They performed extremely well for us.
Now, these bullets seem to be set up for more higher octane loadings.
Sure.
I see a lot of, there's some 6mm, 6.5, 270, 7mm, 30 cal. Okay, you got some 25 cal in here as well. This, like I said, the 6A Western is the thing that just kind of comes to mind for me. I've shot a custom hand load with that 175 out of a 27 Nosler into gel, and it did. I was very surprised with how well it performed. But that was, I was brand new to it, didn't know anything about it, and it held together very well, even at close range. Penetrated great, made a great wound cavity, all of the things that you want out of a hunting bullet like that. So it was a pleasant surprise, and so I did not know that you made it a little bit tougher than the traditional GameKing, but proof is in the pudding.
Right. Yeah, that jacket, on all those bullets is definitely quite a bit thicker. So.
Okay, very, very good.
It's kind of a do-it-all bullet for hunting, if you will, right? That tip gives you the high BC. It's got a thicker lead jacket, so you see the weight retention. It's stout enough to punch through shoulders. You're going to get that mid-range expansion on it. So for the Western hunter, it's a good do-it-all bullet.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And once again, not bonded, but you're getting that great bonded type of performance in terms of weight retention and penetration and everything, while without having to mess with that, and still getting great accuracy. I know a couple of guys that have killed elk and moose with the 6.8 Western with that 175 grain tip GameKing, and a couple of them, shot at these animals, a couple times, didn't recover any of them because they just punched right through and exited, and the animal run 20 yards and tips over. So that seems to have been a very, very successful design you guys have made here more recently.
Yeah, it's been well received for sure.
Now, I have heard reference to a game changer bullet. Is that just another name for the tipped GameKing?
It is, yeah. So that's getting back to, when we were doing a little bit of loaded ammunition, that was the tipped GameKing bullet. That was one of the finished ammunition boxes that we loaded.
Okay, and since you do not make loaded ammunition anymore yourselves, that's kind of fallen by the wayside.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, but a lot of people know it as that, right? The game changer, tipped GameKing kind of seems interchangeable at this point in time. But yeah, the bullet itself is a tipped GameKing, and game changer was inherently applied to it just for the name of the boxed ammunition.
Now, is there anything else we need to talk about with the tipped GameKing before we move on to some of your other loadings?
I think you covered it pretty well. Yeah, I think the takeaway on that one is kind of a do-it-all bullet, and it's really well suited for just about anything. As we will talk about here with the Harvest collection being like a whitetail style bullet. It's really well suited for that and everything out west. So I think it's become so popular just because it does everything well, and it's applicable to so many different situations.
Now, these bullets, specifically the GameKing stuff, is applicable to a lot of cartridges, but not every single cartridge. Like, for instance, I didn't really see anything appropriate for a 30-30 or a 45-70 there, but you have a bullet for that in the Pro Hunter. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, our Pro Hunter tends to be a lot of our flat base style bullets. And yeah, I don't know. Would you categorize it as anything outside of that, Mark?
Yeah, Pro Hunters are typically a slightly thicker jacket than our GameKings. Mm-hmm. And like you say, they're mostly flat base type bullets. And then a lot of them, like you're saying, will have maybe a flat tip if they needed to be loaded in a tubular magazine, stuff like that. But yeah, you're 100% correct. Flat bases are how those work.
Yeah, and it looks like a lot of these, not necessarily all of them, have a kind of a more blunt nose to them as well. Like, for instance, your 150 grain 30 cal, your 155 grain 35 cal. I imagine those are 30-30 and 35 Remington optimized for those. The 300 grain 45-70, but then you also have like a 180 grain 303 caliber. I imagine is for a 303 British, for instance. So it's a little bit of a pointed bullet, but like you said, flat base. Now I imagine with these, with such a wide range of cartridges that you'd be using these in, from a 30-30 and a 45-70 up to .303 British, 30-06, even some 6 mil and 7 mil stuff. I imagine there's quite a bit of variation in your optimum impact velocities for these as well, right?
Yeah, yeah, they are definitely designed for kind of a wider window. Mm-hmm. But however, once again, I would definitely try to tailor it to the cartridge that you're using. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't go 110 grain bullet out of your 308 Winchester.
Yeah.
As long as you keep the bullet weights inside your normal cartridge specifications, then you should be just fine.
But say, for instance, like with that 300 grain bullet for the 4570, I'd imagine a guy would be hand loading that to around 1800-ish feet per second at the muzzle. Yeah. You're not going to shoot it super far at something with a 4570, but like what sort of impact velocity should a guy be shooting for there?
That particular bullet, I think we took it all the way down to I want to say 1200 feet a second. Mm-hmm. So that one was designed for short barreled carbines, things like that.
Okay.
So once again, that kind of falls into kind of whatever your rifle cartridge combo is applicable to. We usually have a bullet that'll fit that category.
Mm-hmm. Now, to back up just a second with the tipped GameKing, so we talked about that being a tougher bullet than the traditional GameKing. Do you get a little bit of an extra bump with your maximum velocity threshold with that?
Yeah. I mean, normally you can definitely handle higher velocity with those bullets than you normally would in that weight class. If that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely.
And then is there you're still looking at around an 1850 minimum impact velocity for the tipped GameKing, or should it be a little faster?
Those are still pretty close to that 1800 feet a second. So yeah, as long as you're within that 1850, I think you'll be real close.
Mm-hmm. Now, how are you defining what acceptable expansion is at, say, that minimum expansion? Is it any expansion at all? Is it like caliber and a half or 2X or what?
I think most of the normal stuff we looked at was, if we got 1.5 diameter, mm-hmm. That's kind of what we were looking for. And a lot of times you're going to get a lot more penetration with those lower velocities than you would normally, up close. When you got the extra velocity opening up faster, and they don't penetrate quite as deep. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's kind of what we were looking for, is that, maybe caliber and a half.
Okay. Now, for instances, say back in the Pro Hunter line, you have a lot of 30 caliber stuff in here, just for instance, that a person could use. Some of them in a 30-30, others, like that 220 grain round nose, be great in a 30-06, I'd imagine as well. Is there, and then say you got 170, 100 or 150 grain, so I imagine those are both good 30-30s, and then there's that 180 grain in there as well. Is there a reason why a guy, say if he had a 30-06, should go more towards a Pro Hunter versus a GameKing?
They're once again a little bit tougher. So if you're maybe hunting elk in the brush or something like that, you might want to go with that flat base Pro Hunter. Mm-hmm. If your ranges are going to be limited, meaning 100, 200, 300 yards, that Pro Hunter is probably going to be your better bet. Now, if you're stretching it out a little bit farther, 4, 5, or 6, then the GameKing is probably going to be where you want to be. Mm-hmm. So that would be my kind of guideline there if you're trying to decide between the two.
Now, your MatchKing and your GameKing are both very old offerings. How long has the Pro Hunter been around?
That's as long as the GameKing. They've both been around a very long time.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
Now, you have another line that's completely different from all of this with your BlitzKing. So I'm imagining that's varmint bullets, right?
Yep. Yeah, we've got two bullets in the varmint offering, that BlitzKing and then our varminter. Really, again, differentiating factor being that those BlitzKings are tipped bullets and the varminters are just your standard. There's several different nose types, but lead nose, hollow nose, all that different stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now, is the varminter a flat base bullet, or does it vary?
Mark, I don't.
Varies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, those, I believe some have boat tails, some don't. A lot of the lighter weight, like 20 cal, or no, actually we just have Blitzkings in 20 cal, but a lot of the lighter weight varmint bullets are flat bases as opposed to the other ones, little heavier ones. We start putting boat tails on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So now that I'm looking at it, I see you have like a 80 grain 6mm boat tail varminter bullet, but almost everything else looks like is a flat base. So is the varminter an older design, and then the Blitzking a newer design?
Yeah, I would assume so. Yeah, I think that's just kind of coming in with like the demand of tipped bullets in general. Right? I think that was like just a point in time where we had a lot of these lines expand to include those with the demand of shooters and stuff. So a lot of it started without tipped options.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good.
Well, I can say Blitzkings, I think came around 2000, 2001, somewhere in that area. I think that's when the Blitzkings kind of came around.
Okay, all right. Now, you guys have a partnership. Are you sister companies with Barnes? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's one way you could look at it. Yeah, we're they're both owned by JDH Capital, and so we work very closely together. That's one of the things that has been cool to see with the new ownership is they've really united both brands, and with that, there's a lot of leveraging of best practices, if you will, right? And so I feel like it's allowed us to explore new manufacturing processes and different things just to become more efficient as independent businesses. So it's been cool to see.
Mm-hmm. Well, so the big news that's come out with your guys' partnership is the new Harvest Collection. So it's offered in several different cartridges, but all loaded with Sierra Tipped GameKing bullets. So this is a 300 Win Mag, 180 grain load I have here. I also have a 223 69 grain loading, and there's a lot more stuff available besides that. Let me pull it up here. So there's a 6.5 PRC 145, 30-06 180, 6.5 Creedmoor 140, a 243 90 grain, 270 140 grain, 308 165, 7 Rim Mag 150, and then the 300 Win Mag 180 that I just talked about. So pretty good lineup right out the gate there. What is so I see a picture of a deer on the front of it. Is that what you guys are gearing it towards?
Yeah, I think they were, Barnes is trying to make a push into the Midwest whitetail hunter, right? There's a lot of whitetail hunters that are out there. And with them being, a copper bullet offering, I think a lot of their reach has historically been out west. Mm-hmm. And so this was a, play for them to expand their market, expand their consumer base. A lot of shooters are familiar with the Sierra bullets. And again, we kind of talked about how that bullet is just well suited for a wide array of things, and it's a great do-it-all bullet. So they approached us about the idea when they wanted to make the push, and we thought it was a great idea. And I think they did a really good job with the branding and the caliber selection that they're coming out with. A lot of the best-selling whitetail calibers out there. And so, yeah, we're really excited to see that. I think it's going to do really well.
Yeah, that is an interesting marriage between your company and Barnes like that. Because like you said, when I think of Barnes, I think of really tough bullets. And when I think of Sierra, I think of really accurate bullets. And I know that it's Barnes ammo with a Sierra bullet. But that also was heartening to hear what you were saying earlier about the tipped GameKing, but how it's a little bit tougher like that. And so we can get some of these things that we like about these different brands mixed together. And I don't know what the deal is off the top of things. Okay, on their website, they have, looks like competitive pricing for this loaded ammunition as well. So it's less expensive than what we're used to with Barnes too.
Yep. Yeah, and that's one thing we've been excited about from the Sierra side. Everything that we've seen from their testing, they hold very high accuracy standards with their ammunition. And so even at this, budget option, it's been very impressive with what we've been getting back and seeing that round being capable of doing. So I anticipate it going really well. I mean, first impressions off the launch that we've heard has been very well received, and I've heard they've been getting lots of images, and we've been getting tagged in them with guys going out and shooting groups, and it's pretty impressive. I think the market's going to be very happy with that ammunition. It's been cool to see.
Yeah, there are definitely some cool developments going on. I liked hearing about the Harvest Collection, and that was also very interesting what you told me about the new MatchKing X bullet as well. I had no idea that was the deal. When did you guys officially launch the new MatchKing bullet?
So we just launched it down at NRA, in
Okay.
sync with all that Harvest stuff. But yeah, that's a brand new release for us. For Sierra, I don't know, it's a big deal, man. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing right now. I feel like Sierra, like you said, it's got a very good reputation, right, historically.
Mm-hmm.
And just for whatever reason, I think that there hasn't been a lot of the progression coming from the Sierra brand in particular over the last handful of years. And so being able to come out with this bullet, I truly feel like is a big push for us in our space. And again, with the familiarity with the MatchKing bullet and how many people are shooting that bullet already, to be able to now take that same ballistic profile and take it into the hunting world and use it in the field. It's already been very well received. But also as we push forward, just looking at, there's a lot of heavy for caliber offerings that we're scheming up right now, and just a lot of exciting things that are going to kind of modernize the Sierra side as far as our bullet selection goes. So it's exciting times.
So we just had those couple of the new MatchKing X bullets coming out, but it sounds like there's going to be some different weights, different calibers coming out in the future. Is it available in loaded ammo yet, or is it only for hand loaders at this point?
Only hand loaders at this point. Yeah.
Is there a possibility that may change in the future?
I hope so. No, I think so. In initial talks and everything we've been hearing, again, retailers, manufacturers, everybody's been very excited about this. So, given a little bit of time here, I think that isn't too far off of the possibility.
Okay, very good. So is there anything with any other products or anything that we didn't talk about, or anything that we need to emphasize with anything that we did talk about?
Man, I think you did a really good job of covering it. I don't know, Mark, do you have anything on?
No, I'm good. I think that covers it all.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, where can people go to learn more about Sierra Bullets?
Yeah, so our website, it's a great spot, sierrabullets.com. We've actually got a resources page up there that has a Bullet 101 if you just want to learn more about all the different bullet offerings, different families, different bullet constructions that we're using in those families. It's a great resource to go learn about those.
Now, you guys have recently updated your website, too. It's markedly different from when I visited it a year ago. I guess that came with your new management, huh?
Yeah. No, there's been a lot of pushes on that front. And it's one of those things. So I'm a month and a half into this position, and it was very encouraging to come into this role and see a lot of low-hanging fruit to go update. When I was first using the website, when I came on, I was like, oh, man, I can't believe people are getting around and finding what they need on this thing. Yeah. So, yeah, the new website's been very welcomed, and, it's kind of goes in line with everything we're doing on the bullet, the manufacturing side, trying to modernize our selection as well as our branding, how we're putting ourselves out there to the market. We're going to really be focusing on creating more content, educational content, for fun content, and field content. So Sierra's in a good position right now, I'd say, just to be modernizing our brand and our product offering. So it's exciting.
Okay, very, very good. Well, before we wrap up, I'm going to ask each of you the question I am asking every single person that comes on the podcast this year. You must choose one to hunt with for the rest of your life. Either a single cartridge, and you can use any bullet in that cartridge, or you have to choose a single bullet, and then you can use that bullet in any cartridge. What is your choice for a cartridge or for your bullet? And whoever wants to go first can go first.
Man, I'd say bullet. I think that's where everything starts. Even when I'm building a new rifle, it starts with the bullet that I want to shoot and building it to that spec. And, again, just getting to the importance of the bullet itself, right? Like, you can have everything do what it's supposed to do, but if the bullet doesn't do what it needs to do when it hits its mark, then you're kind of left empty-handed. So I would say bullet for sure. And, especially with the, what we were just talking about, the MKX, man. Like, I feel like you could put that into many calibers and go hunt just about anything you'd want across North America. So I would say bullet.
All right, MatchKing X for Colby. Mark, what about you?
I agree with Colby. Why not? Just stick a MatchKing X in about anything and go with that.
Okay. Very good. Well, two guys that stand behind their new products. That's very good. I'm glad you have confidence in it. That sounds like a great bullet. I'm interested to learn more about it, get some experience with it myself in the future. So thank you guys both very much for joining me on the show today. I learned a lot. I really enjoyed it. Have a great day.
Thanks for having us, John.
Yep. Thanks, John.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. Now, I did talk with both Colby and Mark offline about the fact that some people use Sierra target bullets, specifically their tipped MatchKing, for hunting. Now, the official position of the company is those bullets are not designed for hunting or for reliable expansion on game. They said any instances where a bullet performs well on game are purely by happenstance. Now, the U.S. military must abide by the Hague Convention, which prohibits the military from using bullets that are designed to expand or mushroom. That's not the exact wording of the agreement, but you get the idea. Anyway, I asked Colby and Mark about the rumor I've heard that, since the U.S. military uses MatchKing bullets, that the company cannot advertise those bullets as being good for use on game or for providing good terminal performance. They said they couldn't comment on that one way or another. So take all that for what you will. However, it is important to note that Sierra does manufacture several other bullets that are specifically designed for hunting. The tried and true GameKing is one. So is the newer Tipped GameKing. Now, the literally brand new MatchKing X, or MKX, is their latest product. It is designed to give hunters all of the things they love about the classic MatchKing, with the added benefit of better terminal performance. This bullet has a high BC. They say it is easy to tune for accuracy. It is also designed to expand at impact velocities down to around 1,800, 1,850 feet per second. So what's not to like about that? Now, I am looking for some people to help me test out the new Sierra MKX bullet and the new Barnes Harvest Collection ammunition this fall. The folks at Barnes and Sierra have generously donated 4 boxes of MKX component bullets and 3 boxes of Harvest Collection loaded ammunition. Specifically, I have 1 box of MKX bullets in each of the following calibers and bullet weights: 175 grain 30 cal, 200 grain 30 cal, 142 grain 6.5 millimeter, and 135 grain 277 caliber. The Barnes Harvest Collection ammunition loaded with the Sierra bullets is available in the following chamberings and bullet weights: 223 Remington 69 grain, 243 Winchester 90 grain, 6.5 Creedmoor 140 grain, 6.5 PRC 145 grain, 270 Winchester 140 grain, 7 Rim Mag 150 grain, 308 Winchester 165 grain, 30-06 180 grain, and 300 Win Mag 180 grain. Now, Barnes and Sierra will send 1 box of component bullets or 1 box of ammunition to 7 lucky listeners who are interested in helping me test out and evaluate this stuff this year. They'll send 4 people each 1 box of the MKX bullets, and 3 people 1 box each of the loaded Barnes ammunition. If you would like to participate, go to thebiggamehuntingblog.com/Sierra, sign up there. Confirm your email if you are asked to do so afterwards. Then you will receive another email from me asking what state you live in, whether you want the Barnes ammo or the Sierra bullets, and your preferred cartridge or caliber for that stuff. The deadline to sign up is 11:59 p.m. Central Time on 1 June 2025. I will conduct a random drawing and select 1 person to receive each box of ammunition or bullets. So I'll randomly pick 3 people to each receive a different chambering in the Barnes ammunition, and 4 people to receive a different caliber or bullet weight for the Sierra bullets. You can only sign up once, so choose wisely. And remember, the MKX is a component bullet, not loaded ammunition. So you either need to be a hand loader yourself, or have someone you can trust do load development for you with those bullets. And like I said in the interview, the MKX bullets use the same load data as the old MatchKing bullets. So just consult the Sierra website or a Sierra load manual for load data. I will coordinate directly with the person I randomly select for each box of bullets or ammunition and ship that stuff to you. In return, I ask for your assistance in conducting an honest evaluation of this ammo and of these bullets. Let me know how reliably it functions in your rifle. Let me know how accurately it shoots for you. Let me know what load development is like. Do your best to use it afield. I won't hold it against you if things don't work out and you don't get a chance to actually take an animal with it, or if your rifle just doesn't shoot it well. But if you do end up shooting a deer or other animal with these bullets or this ammunition, do a thorough necropsy of the animal. Let me know how it performs afterwards. What range was your shot? What was your shot angle? How did the animal react after the shot? How far did you have to track the animal to recover it? What was your blood trail like? Did the bullet exit? What do the entrance and exit wounds on the animal look like? If possible, take pictures of the chest cavity to show what the damage was like, etc. With luck, we'll get several data points on how all of this stuff performs on several different animals in several different parts of the country with different bullet weights, calibers, all of that stuff that I can use to provide feedback to Barnes and Sierra and to other members of my audience to see if this stuff is worth taking hunting in the future. So if you want the chance to test and evaluate this stuff for yourself, once again, sign up at thebiggameHuntingblog.com/Sierra or the link in the episode description or pinned comment. Remember, the deadline to sign up is 11:59 p.m. Central Time, 1 June 2025. Remember, you can make your dream hunt turn into a reality, and I can help. Thanks for listening. We'll see you back here next time on the Big Game Hunting Podcast.